Intervals are the building blocks of all music and a large part of the language of music. Both melody and harmony can be described in terms of intervals. The more professional a musician is, the greater the chance of him using intervals to explain musical structure. You might want to switch to full screen or theater screen mode to make the screen easier to read. The goal for this short video is to give one a quick introduction to intervals. As is the case with much of music theory, you may have to utilize your memory and engage yourself in the active use of this material in order to become proficient at identifying intervals. You should understand the charts you are seeing now and learn some important facts about intervals. There are 5 types of intervals: major, minor, perfect, augmented, and diminished. Intervals are numbered. The number is derived by counting the white keys, called natural tones, on the piano. Count all of the notes that are part of the interval. If you are reading music, count all of the lines and spaces involved in the interval. The first note of an interval can be any natural note on the piano, and everything about the interval is related to that first note. Measure the distance from the first note to the second note. The units of measure we're using are the whole step and the half step, also known as a semitone. The distance between the notes determines the type or name of the interval. For instance, perfect first or unison, major second, major third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, major seventh, and perfect eighth or octave. The diminished fifth and augmented fourth are tritones. They're very dissonant. They split the octave evenly. Major and minor intervals apply only to the second, third, sixth, and seventh. A minor interval is exactly 1/2 step smaller than a major interval. Perfect intervals apply to unisons, fourths, fifths, and octaves. Augmented intervals are larger than major or perfect intervals. They usually apply to the second, third, fourth, fifth, or sixth. Diminished intervals are usually used to make a perfect interval smaller. But a minor interval lowered 1/2 step would also be diminished. My examples are of ascending intervals. The rule of 9 applies to descending or inverted intervals. The inversion of a fifth would be a fourth, totaling 9. When determining the interval between 2 notes played at the same time, use the lower note as the first note. Intervals relate to scales, chords, key signatures, and the circle of fifths. For instance, the major scale is made of major and perfect intervals. Intervals greater than 1 octave are common. Simply add 7 to the interval number in the first octave and get the counterpart up an octave. 7 represents the number of steps in a major scale required to get to the next higher octave. So, an interval of C to D is a major second. If we play the D an octave higher, we have an interval of a major ninth. An inverted interval is when we move the second note below the first note. For example, C ascending to D is a major second. The inverted interval D ascending to C is a minor seventh interval. Observe C ascending to D, up 2 half steps or 1 whole step, an interval of a major second. Now, let's invert that D. Remember, the rule of 9 applies. We had a major second, so the new interval must be a seventh. We descend 10 half steps, an interval of a minor seventh. In this example, we have a C ascending to D, which was a major second. If we play the D up an octave, we simply add 7. Therefore, we have an interval of a major ninth. Mastering intervals should include understanding the music theory of intervals, playing intervals on your instrument, and aural, aka hearing, recognition of interval sounds. The best musicians can often recognize intervals by ear. If you are not gifted with this ability, you could do ear training to develop this ability.